Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I'm the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, here we go, Josh.
Yeah, so the Oscar nominations just came out, and I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Well, I like to start off positive. We've talked about this a million times on the podcast. I think our only job in this podcast is to be positive. We've talked about this a million times before. All we do is pay money and sit in the theater. Yes, we're an important part of this trinity, but that's all we do. So it's better for me as a person when I'm listening to people to hear some things that they liked about something before this sucks, blah, Twitter. So positive. I'm happy with everybody who got nominated. Congratulations. I think it's a great thing. There's a strange thing happening this year where Al Pacino hasn't been nominated in 22 years. Tom Hanks hasn't been nominated in 19 years. Kathy Bates hasn't been nominated in 17 years. Joe Pesci hasn't been nominated in 29 years. So there's a lot of people being nominated or who haven't been nominated in a really long time. So I'm happy for that. And the other good thing is this is the first year that I'm weeks in advance. I have seen all but one film and all acting nominations except for two.
Wow.
So Jojo Rabbit, I haven't seen, which comes out again on Friday, I think, of normal calendar, not podcast calendar.
Yeah.
And so that'll kill two birds with one stone. That'll kill movie, best film, and then I will have seen all of them. And then Scarlett Johansson's second Oscar nomination. Yep. How great is that?
That's awesome.
Have we not talked about how she should be nominated?
I thought she was. I thought she'd been nominated at some point in her life, but she wasn't. So now she's got two.
Yeah. And I have to listen to it, but I believe the conversation went, wait, she's never been nominated? This is what you said. And I said, no, she's not. Well, she should be. She should be nominated at least twice this year. And I was like, really? And she's like, and you were like, yeah, Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story. And I was like, well, from your lips. And sure enough, I had not heard that in the Oscar conversation at all. And then all of a sudden it started happening. I started seeing her on both lists. And I was like, wait, this is like Josh now has the power.
No.
He has the no, you have it more than you used to, because that's a pretty good. You immediately went to she could be nominated for two things. I believe it's in our Marriage Story podcast. Yeah. So congratulations. Welcome to the power.
Oh, great.
Or at least Baby Yoda steps into the power, the force of the Oscars. So I'm happy for everybody. That said, my first text back to you was #disappointed. And I'm not disappointed in who got nominated. I'm just wishing some other people had been nominated.
Yeah.
I'm not the type of person who says, oh, that person should not be on the list, because they are. They're on the list. They're one of the five. Mm-hmm. But I would have liked to have seen Awkwafina.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Jennifer Lopez. I would have liked to have seen the grandmother from The Farewell, who I still can't pronounce her name, so I refuse to try until I get it right. It might take to this time next year to get it right, but I'll get it. I got Lupita Nyong'o down. I'm going to get it. And then the father from Parasite. Do you know his name offhand?
No, I can't think of it. Shuzhen Zhao is the Nai from The Farewell, and the father from
God, you do that so well.
Parasite is Song Kang, but I think it's Gang Ho, because one of the commenters on our YouTube channel kind of like said the Kang is supposed to be Gang, at least how we say it. But I'm not really sure. I haven't done a deep dive into Korean pronunciation, but I guess it would be Song Gang Ho. So I don't know. We'll see.
Once again, brilliant. Sounds right to me, but that's me. Bong Joon-ho. Bong Joon-ho. I said it backwards. The way that they pronounce that, it sounds like Bong Joon is one word.
No, Bong is his last name. Bong is like Scorsese.
Right, but I'm telling you, when they were announcing his name, when the gentleman, who I can't remember who the actor is, was saying it, he was saying it as if it sounded like one word. And then the ho comes after. So
it was John Cho.
I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, John. Yes, thank you. Ask and you shall receive. Ask Josh and Josh knows. Thank God you're doing this podcast with me, because I'd be so embarrassed without you. I'd be like,
we'll get it figured out.
Josh, help. Yeah, I'll figure it out. A year later, now that speaking of Lupita Nyong'o, it would have been nice to see her on the list. And then the only other nomination I haven't seen is Cynthia Erivo from Harriet. I haven't seen that yet, which I was supposed to go see it with my father. And for some reason, we saw something else. And he was like, wait, I thought we were seeing the thing about, the Underground Railroad thing. And I was like, yeah, we decided not to see that movie. So he was a little bit confused. I think we went and saw
Hustlers.
No, I rented that on DVD and I watched it by myself. I was not going to watch that with my father. Not going to happen. No. Although his buddy, who is a good friend of his and helps us out a lot and takes him to church and stuff like that, he said, oh, you're watching a Jennifer Lopez movie? I just watched a movie with her, but I couldn't focus on anything because I was focused on, I was like, no. But I didn't want to tell this. He's a very vibrant elderly gentleman. So I don't mean to say elderly, like get a description of somebody decrepit. He's not. He's very youthful. I was not going to tell him about the first dance Jennifer Lopez has in Hustlers. I was not, because, no, because it's phenomenal. And it's, and if that's what you're into, I can imagine how much that might drive you crazy because it's her.
Because she's 50.
I mean,
and she looks amazing.
That's ridiculous.
And she's talented.
Nothing jiggles on her. It bothers the hell out of me. No, and she's had twins. What? Wow. And she looks like that.
She also has an army of people making her look like that too.
Still her ass up on that pole.
Literally. Yes.
Anyway, the point is that people want to talk about diversity. People want to talk about #SoWhite. I understand all of that. My point is this. You had pointed this out in our conversations right after the nominations that it's a systematic thing. If people aren't buying tickets to see these, then nobody's going to fund them. Then nobody's going to nominate them because the parts aren't there. The roles aren't there. Fortunately, that is changing. 6 or 7 prominent female directors, one of which we're going to talk about next week. And there is a chance to see diversity in these lists. And it's not like you have to nominate the only Black person who was in a role. There were plethoras of performances for people to be nominated. And I just hope that the Academy catches up very quickly. Just 1 or 2 things would have changed the way I felt about the Oscars this year. There's no excuse for it this year. The performances are there. They could have been nominated. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Alfre Woodard in Clemency, which I haven't seen yet. I mean, there's just so many different things that could have happened. And, it's great that Brad Pitt is probably going to win his Oscar. It's great that Al Pacino is nominated after 20 plus years. It's great that Joe Pesci. And by the way, did I not tell you about Al Pacino when we talked about The Irishman? Yeah. I told you his performance was going to be nominated because he was a standout. When you put it in perspective, the amount of people who weren't nominated, it's not just about a diversity issue per se. I mean, Robert De Niro wasn't nominated. There was a lot of people who got left off the list. Jonathan Pryce is nominated for the first time. Love him. Anthony Hopkins is nominated after gazillions of years of not being nominated. So good for them. It's just there were so many choices this year. And I thought for sure there was no reason why anybody had to say, oh, they're trying to pack the nominations because they're trying to be diverse. The performances were there. They could have done it. And I was just shocked that they weren't there. I was shocked that Awkwafina wasn't there. I was shocked by that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you're talking about multiple different groups of artisans. I mean, most of the ones you've been talking about are actors and actresses. But I think that in other places, cinematography specifically, they had capabilities to shine a light on certain people, and they ended up shining that light on, I mean, literally, I guess they're cinematographers, on people like Jaron Blaschke, who got a nomination for The Lighthouse. I don't know how many people in the Academy have seen The Lighthouse, but I'm guessing that all the cinematographers have seen The Lighthouse, and they obviously love it. And it's really cool that a movie like that got an Oscar nomination for something so specifically unique to that film. That is a very difficult film to shoot because they shot on black and white film, And it's something that's not done very much anymore. And I think all the other cinematographers recognize that. If you were to throw that out to anybody in the Academy, I don't know if Jaron Blaschke would have gotten a nomination, but because the cinematographers not do the nominations, pick the nominations, that I think is why he showed up there. And I think similarly, the writers are shining lights on different writers. Ryan Johnson got a nomination for Knives Out. Taika Waititi got a nomination for Jojo Rabbit, and Greta Gerwig got another nomination for her second film that she's written and released independently in Little Women, which, like you said, we'll talk about next week. So I mean that those are some of the good things. I think, like you said, Scarlett Johansson being nominated twice, Saoirse Ronan for Little Women, and then I was amazed when they announced Florence Pugh's name for Little Women, just because of how much we've talked about her this year. I mean, she has kind of been ubiquitous in our discussions, and it's really cool that she's getting recognition to this degree. And I think that, you know, her performance in Little Women was amazing, but her other performances this year in Fighting with My Family and Midsommar were also awesome. So I'm glad. I wish there was like a nomination for great year, you know, because she would totally crush that. It's too bad that Lulu Wang didn't get a nomination for Best Director. I mean, she directed the crap out of that movie. It's so close to her, so personal to her, and she was able to separate herself enough to make an engaging film that was funny, touching, and, you know, stayed on the rails. So I thought that's awesome. So, and The Farewell basically got shut out, didn't it? I don't think it got any nominations.
Yeah,
so
it did. Completely shut out.
That's crazy.
Well, the thing I want to say is this. We've talked about this in the past. The Oscars are not the end all be all. It's not the end of the world. It's in retrospect, after the awards are given out, you're like, yeah, okay, so what? That person won, but I love this movie, and I love The Favorite, and I love this movie, and I loved Roma. I loved all these movies from last year. We've often talked about a 16, 17-year-old me or you who don't know things about movies at this point, and all they have is the mainstream idea of what movies are. So when you see something like Dogtooth nominated a few years ago, you're like, what's that? And then you explore it. Next thing you know, I meet you. I know who Yorgos Lanthimos is because of your appreciation for that movie and his career up to that point. And now we have an affection for him that we didn't have before. That said, with film Twitter and with the internet, it's good and bad, which is, you know, an often debated thing. The good is that there are so many people out there going, hey, The Farewell, it got missed. It got missed. It got missed. So people are putting that in the conversation. And Aquafina came on and said, thank you. Sorry we didn't get nominated. But you know what? It's great that people are putting us in a conversation of we've gotten snubbed and people are upset about it. And Greta Gerwig not being nominated for director, which I personally think that's the one that stung the most now that I've seen the movie. And when we talk about it next week, we can talk about that more. But it's like, oh, how did that not happen? But she's in a conversation and she was so gracious and so thankful. And she was like, thank all the women and the men who worked on this film. If it wasn't for this movie, this wouldn't have happened. I would have met this person. This person got nominated. This person, costumes, blah, blah, blah. My two actresses got nominated. You know, it shines light on it, is what the Oscars does. And now that there has been controversies, that shines light on it too. So hopefully that 16, 17-year-old me who doesn't know about Little Women and doesn't know it's a film that I should explore as a 16, 17-year-old guy, now that everybody's put it in the conversation of she got robbed, she got snubbed, it would make me investigate that movie. So I think in reverse, it's happening anyway. So I'm good with it because Aquafina won the Golden Globe, and now I'm just saying, we talked about her a long time ago. I'm just saying we talked about nominations. Now she's in that conversation. So when they think about casting somebody, maybe they're going to think about her instead of somebody else that was profitable at one time. Maybe they'll think about her because not only is she in a movie that did very well financially, critically did extremely well, nominations wise did very well except for the Oscars. Now she's part of that conversation. So maybe that executive, male or female, white or black, walks into a room and says, hey, I got this idea for this movie. It's a 20-something-year-old female. I'm thinking about casting this, this, and this. Maybe that executive will go, I just saw The Farewell. Maybe we should think about Awkwafina. Maybe that will happen. I'm hoping that it spawns good things. To just give people nominations to make it diverse, I have an issue with.
Yeah.
But they were here this year.
Yeah.
They were out there. So
they were teed up for them, but they didn't take advantage. So yeah,
they were.
And we've kind of buried the lead in not talking about Parasite, which got 6 nominations, being the first South Korean film to ever get nominated for Best Picture. That's huge. I mean, I was kind of amazed. Best editing, best director, best original screenplay,
production design.
Yeah, production design. These are the right things to be nominated for, I think, for a film that possibly would have a chance at winning Best Picture. It also got nominated for Best International Film, which, I guess a lot of people are saying that it's a lock for. Now, I've heard a lot about Honeyland, and Honeyland's also got a first. It's been the first movie to ever be nominated as Best Documentary and Best International Film. I think it's from North Macedonia. So, yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to seek out and figure out why they've gotten so much. But once again, that's one of the reasons for me to reach out and look into this movie, because I was kind of sad that Apollo 11 didn't get nominated. That's one of the documentaries I saw this year, which I thought was just amazing. The way that they were able to take archival footage and not do any kind of talking heads or voiceover, but still make a dynamic, engaging film that I was interested in from the beginning to the end. And it was actually stressful at times and exciting and ethereal and just awe-inspiring, and they said no. So, but as far as Jail is concerned, I did see Hustlers within the last week or so, and you're right, the criminal intro scene of her dance is amazing, but I think that film kind of falls apart at the end, and it doesn't bode well for a singular performance. So, I don't know. I don't know how you separate someone's performance from their character. Like, how much of the writing of her character do you put on her performance? I don't know. Like, can you act a character past its limitations that have been written down? I don't know. Have there been any characters that have been written poorly that have been nominated or won? The actors have won Academy Awards? I'm not sure. I'll give you some time to think about that.
No, one comes to mind immediately. I'm not so sure, structurally speaking, The Blind Side is that great of a film. I don't have a problem with it, but a lot of people have a problem with it. I don't know if what Sandra Bullock did was on the page. And also, I don't have any problem separating performances from script, from direction, from other performances, because I do community theater, and that's hit or miss. So you got somebody who's just like barreling through it, who's just dynamite. And then you got somebody who's weaker, and you just accept it for what it is. It doesn't take away from what the other person is doing so grand. It actually adds to it, because you're like, wow, that person got that. And ironically, the last couple of plays that I've done, the comment has been, he's done well for an underwritten character. So in a way, it's kind of a compliment, because he's saying he didn't like the character and how it was written, but I did well. So I think you can separate. I think I don't have as much of a problem with the end of that movie, because I knew it was happening before it even happened. I just think there's a power in the way that she seemed different than anything she's ever been in before. And I've been watching J-Lo as an actress. I just said J-Lo. I don't think I've ever called her that before in my life, but I've been watching Jennifer Lopez since a movie she did called U-Turn with Sean Penn.
Oh yeah.
And she did a movie back in the day with Jack Nicholson. I can't remember, Bloodline or something like that. And I've been transfixed by her as an actress. Then she had a big musical career and she became a big pop star, and that's fine. But she's always done movies, and then she became a romantic comedy star. And then, she's done stuff. I just never seen. She was a force of nature in Hustlers. There was something intangible about her performance. And in a way, it's good, because sometimes everything's a stepping stone. And so maybe the next time she does something that they talk about award worthy, then she'll be nominated. Maybe it just wasn't her time, but they've been talking about her being nominated from the beginning, and all of the reviews are stellar for her. A lot of people mention how the third act of the movie falls apart, like you said, but it just would have checked so many boxes for the Academy to nominate somebody who was entrenched in a role that was a character-driven role, that she brought something completely different to it than probably was what was on the page. It would have been a pop star. It would have been a popular actress. It would have been somebody of Latino descent. It would have checked a lot of boxes. Not that that should be a requirement to nominate somebody, that we have to check all of these boxes, but people would have rested a little easier if somebody like her was on the list. It's just the way that it is. And she would have deserved the nomination. No doubt about it. I kept trying to figure out what she was doing that was so different than what I've seen her do before. She is laser focused in that movie. Her character's laser focused too, but she's just focused. And there's a scene, it seems insignificant, but it's so real to me. I don't know if you remember the Christmas party scene. Do you remember the Christmas party scene? And she makes a comment to Constant Wu's grandmother, and the grandmother says something flippant back. And she's like, why have I not met you before? And the way she does it, it's so honest and so real and so believable that it seems insignificant to everybody else. To me, those kind of moments are really hard to play. And she just nails it. And she just, and she doesn't overplay her last dramatic scene. I mean, it's just a performance worthy of an Oscar nomination. Didn't happen, but she's in this conversation about 2019 will not be about who won and who was nominated. It will be about the people that should have been nominated or considered as strong nominations and didn't happen. That's what the conversation will be. And that's not a bad conversation. That's a good conversation.
I mean, we have there's the formats and the forums to have that conversation now, whereas beforehand there really wasn't, but yet people still watched Raging Bull in 1980, even though it didn't win Best Picture. So I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
And then lastly, the only other ones I had on there that didn't get nominated were Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems and Taron Egerton for Rocket Man. And I think both of those guys would have been just fine. Either of those guys or both of those guys would have been just fine in the Best Actor category. But I guess it just wasn't their time as far as the Academy was concerned. So we'll see what happens. I guess we're going to have our kind of like episode coming up where we're going to have our picks for who we think is going to win and who we think should win the Academy Awards coming up here in a couple weeks. So I guess we'll just have to see what we think. Okay, well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com, and you go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can tweet us at actorengineer. We'll see you next time.